The only good meeting's a short one, or not even have it. Would you agree?
Yeah.
The only good meeting's a short one, or not even have it.
Ready, Denise?
Would you agree?
Yeah.
Let me know when you are.
The only good meeting's a short one. Uh-oh. Why did you record that?
I'd like to call Morgan City Council meeting to order. We'll start our work meeting. It is December 14th. Again, appreciate it over here. We work through these items. Okay, there are 4 items on the agenda. Probably will not do them four tonight. It's been a long time since the work session. Most of you were here before. Remember the work session? We meet in format. We go through and discuss. I can't answer the psychological effect of it. I don't understand that, but I do know it's, at least from my perspective, a lot more efficient to sit here and look at each other and talk about the concepts and the ideas and the feelings in a work session. As everybody knows, work meetings are also public meetings. That's why Denise got on the
Zoom video,
YouTube.
Yeah.
Because it is an open public meeting. It's not a closed meeting, it's no public meeting, just the format's a little bit different. So we'll go through those the first items of the schedule and just kind of discuss those. Okay, item number 1 is in regard to the general plan amendment change from central business district to medium density residential. And also the change on the zoning change on the same property from general commercial to multifamily residential RM15. Last week, two meetings ago, a month ago, read this on the agenda and talked through it and looked at it. And the thing of the council, you wanted to table it for a while to think through it. Denise sent out the YouTube thing for the planning commission meeting. I don't think I had a chance to look at that or want to look through that, see what kind of was there, refresh your minds. So as you look at your packet, basically you're talking about that piece of property that has been owned by Kerrigan's. It's behind, between Turner's farm buildings there used to be, and what that street is where Michael and where 250 each were from Jeffrey's place. The piece probably behind there is what we're talking about. There's basically 2 pieces. One piece to the east is owned by another group, and the piece to the west is had been owned by Kerrigan's. Nice in process of buying that or have bought that. The proposal or the thought that it's requesting is to take the piece that they own and split it off for a piece that would end up being 1.49, 1.5 acres to put some apartments in there. The piece to the east is owned by another group that currently is zoned RM15. So it's already zoned for apartments. Part of the situation, the consideration that the owners need to address is getting utilities to it. That's the situation. Again, that's not what we base our decision on, but something that owners have looked at and understood. The utilities, sewer, for example, has got to run to the west. So the piece that's further to the east, next to where the old Kerrigan Motors showroom used to be, that piece sitting there, in order to get that, or for that to be able to be developed, it's got to have the sewer and other utilities ran to the west through the property we're talking about tonight. And I've just some considerations, or just some thoughts. I'm trying to, continue the direction. So part of the thing tonight is they're talking about, or at least the request is for us to consider changing the zoning from commercial to residential on one piece of that, the piece that abuts the other housing development. 2 or 3 things with that for the consideration. And I'll just throw them out and I'll turn time over to you guys to ask questions. some people are concerned with the commercial piece. Once you have some ground, if you change it, it goes into apartment buildings, you never get it back for commercial. That's one thing people weren't even talking about. The other piece I wondered about, what does commercial look like? How much do we need reserved for commercial? And that's a question I don't have a good answer for yet, as far as how much we need reserved for commercial. Currently, commercial doesn't appear to be happening very quickly. Residential is happening very quickly. You're all aware of that. Infrastructure-wise, as mentioned, infrastructure-wise, it's got to come. The sewer's got to come to the west. Sewer have to be put in. In this city, as you all know, we have the builder or the developer putting in infrastructure rather than the city putting that in. So they put in infrastructure, which include curb, gutter, sidewalk, roads, all those to the city standards, along with the storm drain system situation, as well as the power. Infrastructure-wise, if the infrastructure is centrally located, it appears to be less costly down the road for a city. And rather than expanding it out to the city limits, now past the city, those places that annex in, down the road, it costs the city probably more money for those infrastructure than it does those within the current city boundaries. Just some thoughts. Infrastructure-wise, currently seems like housing has enough cloud influence that they have the ability to put in infrastructure pencils for them. Currently, commercial doesn't seem to pencil for much commercial to put in infrastructure. And those are just some thoughts I've had as far as the things to get your thought process going. Okay, I don't know if we need any introduction to the project. You're aware of it. Questions now, thoughts you've had, questions you have on the properties, question on the process for tonight. Maybe it's like two things. Process. First process would be for us to consider if you want to do it, if you want to do the change on, excuse me, the change on the general plan. Now change on general plan from general business to medium density residential. That's the question, if you want to change the general plan on. If the general plan is not changed, then we want to address the second one to change the zoning designation. If you decide to change the general plan from central business to medium density, the next step would be to decide if you want to change the zoning designation. It's currently zoned as commercial general. So if you want to consider this application night, you need to consider whether to change the commercial general to multifamily residential RM15 or not. So a couple of decisions tonight. Second one's based on what happened with the first decision. Okay, with that much of an introduction and thoughts on it, I'll open it for questions or discussion from the council. Thoughts, questions, impressions? Go ahead, T.
This one's been on my mind for the last 3 weeks. I thought about this one a ton. You know, here's some of the things I've written down. And I forgot to bring what I wrote down, so I tried to remember them here. But I think back a little bit to the apartments that we built across the street from Riverside Park. And I remember when we had that discussion, one of the things that I felt pretty strongly about was that there was never going to be a commercial development go in there because that's no longer what commercial was terribly viable. And I thought that what we're going to have there is we're just going to have a dirt spot there, an ugly eyesore there forever waiting for a commercial development that I thought was never going to come to pass. This is a little different, but in a way, to me, it's the same question I guess I have in my mind is, do I see commercial being used back there? If it had frontage from State Street, to me, I think I would I'd have a whole different perhaps perspective on it. But those few homes that are along State Street shield this piece of property. Sometimes, I don't know, it gives me pause to think. thought about the planning commission. They've spent a lot of time on this. Their recommendation to us was that we just simply left it as is, as a commercial piece of property. Respect what they do. They spend a lot of time at it. And I do take into consider their recommendations. That's another thought I've had. I mean, it's as Ray mentioned, eventually there'll probably be RM15 on the east side of that piece of property. So I mean, I've been, like I said, I'm not even sure at this moment where I am on this exactly, but I think there's just a lot of things that those are some of the things I've considered and I've thought about. One of the questions I have, Ryan, is if this were to become townhomes or patio homes or whatever vernacular we use in today's world, are they multi-level or are they just rambler type?
What I envision is more, it'd be a
Two-story. And finally, one of the things, Dave was there, and you may have watched the YouTube. One of the things that the planning commission was pretty adamant about was the fact that they thought that we needed to protect our commercial property, that we didn't want to lose any commercial property. I don't possess the crystal ball, obviously, but I know, commercial in some ways is changing. I mean, it's Christmas time and how many things have been delivered to your door, I don't know. Brick and mortar, is that something that's going to continue to be a need for us here in the city? I don't know. To me, this is a tough one.
Other thoughts or questions? From this council?
Yeah, Ryan, we didn't talk a lot about it last meeting. This is maybe a good time to bring it up, but I think the city planner somewhere along the line mentioned that there was going to be some difficulty in running, I think, was it stormwater away from there, even to the point of not being feasible economically. What have you discovered there?
I think the comment was they had looked into it. That would be something that needs to be addressed. I went out there, again, I'm not the professional on it, but what I see is where that road turns and dead ends to the property, there's two storm drains sitting at the end of that road. So that's running back towards Napa, and so that's the direction it's going, back to the center of the street or on the side of the gutter there. I'm not sure, but I know that the one, it appears, that's on the east side of the road where that vacant lot is, it's in the gutter.
Do you need a microphone?
It crosses back over underneath the road and connects in. It connects into the other storm drain. Those two connect and then it runs towards Napa and then out to State Street is what I looked and saw with those sitting there. Now an engineer would have to go and look at it and get all the elevations and things like that to get the right slopes and stuff. But looking at that, it could all slope is what I envision, is that it would all slope down from east to west, tie into that storm system and out to State Street, just like what hit the comment. I don't know who made the comment about it, but that was,
So,
but yeah.
so it also related just to the concept plan that they looked at was the detention pond being big enough, but it's actually there's storm drain available to tie into.
Yeah.
But no matter what goes in there, that concern
Right.
exists.
Because he can't put a retention pond on that property is what I had learned as well. And that's what Matt educated us on, and we'd have to look into that further. And that's when I found that the storm drain right there.
So there's potential that it would have to go into State Street, but That's all just to be studied. but-
Right. See what the study, see what it does. So.
I appreciate the question. It's a question that is of interest. But that question,
addressed
whether they can afford to do it or not,
That's what I was gonna say.
that has no bearing on the decision.
I didn't ask that. I just said it was mentioned in.
Unless
Yeah.
unless you wanna wait and make sure it can happen before you change the zone.
Well.
The only downside, if you change the zone, then it can happen, and you got a zone change to a certain.
It's-
Yeah.
it's a-
So, it's an interesting question, interesting thought. That still shouldn't play into the decision tonight as far as we approve it.
Well, that also gets addressed after this event here.
Yeah, that's not part of the decision tonight, whether it can happen or not. Okay, Eric, go ahead.
Hey, yeah, make sure my mic's on. So I've been thinking about this. I'm like Tony, I've been putting some thought into this. And I think originally when we tabled it, I wanted to go talk to some of the people that I represent and ask them their thoughts on this. Because really, ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what we need to do, right? We need to represent we represent the people who voted for us. I did that. And I also have been thinking about, you raised a great question, Mayor, that's really been sticking with me over the last, 3-4 weeks that you made it, is what exactly would a commercial business look like? What does it do? As I traveled the last little bit, I think I answered that question. As I went out to a different town, a different city, I actually stayed in the hotel, and there we needed to go eat. We found this awesome restaurant that they had. We was able to go sit down at this restaurant. All the locals there made, you got to go eat here. You got to go eat here. We kept asking, go eat here. It didn't matter where it was at. We were headed to that restaurant. It didn't matter the location, where it was off this road or that road. All the locals, go eat here. Well, we did, and it was fabulous. So I'm saying that to me is what could, I'm just saying commercial, right? Because we're just talking commercial. As I traveled to a different city, it's interesting. I went to that city, and they've got these massive housing developments going, 300-400 homes going in around this place. I go, where's your city center? We don't have one. Where's your stores that are going to support the people here? We don't have one. They have one gas station for this entire thing. That's just this massive place of houses. And I'm like, this seems kind of messed up, right? There's got to be something there to support your residents. There was no grocery store. They were all traveling 40, 45 minutes to get to where they're going. And yet here's these massive housing. And so I thought, it's interesting because you want that mixture, I believe, in a city. You want that mixture of commercial. You want that mixture of residential. And it makes, to me, good sense. I mean, we could fill up this entire valley with houses. But at the end of the day, what would it do us? And so we've always talked about commercial. And, that RDA, we sit here and go, it is a great thing to get commercial in, because then we don't put the infrastructure, the kids into the school, we get the property taxes, we get this, that. And so it's definitely an interesting debate I've been having. But then I also went and asked some people that I know around, to ask a member of the planning commission his thoughts. And I talked to him, and he was definitely, as they said, no, let's keep our commercial. I went and asked other people around that I knew, and they all was under the feeling of, no, let's keep this commercial. And I get that housing's hot. I understand the dynamics of it, but at this point in time, it's not like you can build apartment buildings and come in a year later and tear them down and put something else in there. So, and I wish I had the crystal ball, Tony. I really wish I could see into the future. I wish I had that right now. I'd look at it, but what do we do a year down the road when somebody comes and says, hey, I want to put in this awesome restaurant, this concept restaurant? Well, sorry, we gave away to all the residential. I have this place where I could have put you, but it's gone. And I mean, like I say, you know, that infrastructure's got to still happen too, and maybe it will one day, maybe it won't. I don't know. Maybe I'm seeing things wrong, but once again, I go back to just sitting in that restaurant. It didn't matter the location.
Well, look at Taggart's.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Take a look at Taggart. And, you know, and look, I mean, I bet you they'd wish they'd have a bigger parking lot and ability to expand. I mean, maybe they don't. I don't know. I haven't talked to him, but I think to answer that question, I think there are businesses that would be viable still, even though we get all of our stuff delivered to us. I mean, when I was in those towns, I definitely made a stop at brick and mortar stores as I was traveling. So
Where's this restaurant? What town?
Cheyenne, Wyoming, it's called Sanford's.
Yeah. So I understand that our public hearing continues in our next meeting. This public hearing is just a continuation from our last meeting, but our last meeting, there wasn't a lot of, not a lot of input from the public hearing. Ryan, I wonder, has anybody contacted you with any input on what you're looking to do?
I've had one person contact me, so, and that was Gary Hall.
Okay.
And he was, and he just wanted to make sure that what I'm doing with the ditch. Interrupting the water. Has good luck with the project. I haven't had any negative, we haven't had any negative up here. I guess one question, I don't know if this. One question is, I believe in commercial, all I do is commercial, right? In glass, my development's all been commercial, my investments, everything's commercial, that's where my heart is. But I need funding to fund commercial. And this is a way to fund the commercial, to have a commercial go. So when we talk about commercial, absolutely, people are coming to eat. They have to eat every day. You have to make a conscious decision 3 times a day to eat, right? To stop someplace. But what other businesses do you see that are attracting, that Morgan City wants to attract to here? Is that a fair question to ask?
I think, yeah.
It's a vision of what you want, right? So I want to know, okay, who do I go chase? If I chase this guy, is it feasible? Did I go get a good restaurant? Do I go get this? To fund this, it's got to be a big enough restaurant. It's got to be a big enough, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And to answer that question again, if we could see into the crystal ball would be awesome, right? And this isn't anything I'm saying against you. Yeah, I mean, but, and to me, I mean, even an office building, I mean, I realize people telecommute now, I get that. But, an office building, I think I could see coming in here. It would be nice to have something like that. It would be nice to have, again, I don't know, the brick and mortar thing's an interesting thing as far as a store, but if they're unique enough and if they're viable enough, I think they can make a pretty good business, So
with the brick and mortar like that, I mean, we have, as a small town, we've got mom and pa shops right now. We have one franchise, which is Subway.
Right.
And we have food, right? And so with that being said, when you look at the commercial, and a major franchise comes, does that hinder the city and the mom and pa shops? Does it set us back? Does it push us forward? What is that, in your eyes, what is that? Is it help? Is it a hindrance almost? I got one here. Sorry. Give me another one.
You got to hang on to that, dude, because we got to be, to answer that, I mean, that is a legitimate thing, of the chain. And I'd say this, I mean, I'll say it out loud. I've said, man, if somebody would put a Little Caesars in here, I think they'd make a killing, just because everybody's so busy with baseball games and all the other things. And the games, I think that'd go good. And I mean, that would you know, well, what about?
So does
Debs and what
that
about
hurt
this?
your,
Yeah,
hurt
that
your
hurts-
commercial street? Because
Exactly.
now you've got these old buildings.
Exactly.
eh,
But
versus
two-
the new.
but
You
two,
see
I
what I'm
mean,
saying?
You know, and I realize I'm not saying anything against the current businesses by no means. Not. But also it's one of those things with business, there's always going to be somebody, a competitor
Mhm.
in your market. And so as that happens, you've got to change your business. You got to change your business plan. You make business adjustments. That happens all day long, almost every day in business, right? You're making those adjustments. And, you know, I just, that's kind of the way I'm seeing things right now. You know, and I realize, you know, we want to protect their current business. I'm not saying that. I'm not opposed to that, but there's always going to be competition. There's always going to be another bigger fish in the market.
I just have a, if
You
I'm,
say all of your work in the past has been done principally with commercial, okay?
Mhm.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
I just asked it a while ago. Will it ever be a desirable piece of property for commercial?
Will there be? Or will this be?
Will it ever be a desirable piece of?
Will that one be?
Mhm. I'm asking you because you have a lot of experience in that type of thing.
I would say yes, there is absolutely, there's value to it. And that's why I think that that front part that I want to keep it commercial, because I think it does have some value there. To be commercial does. Now, I'm not sure that that extra acre and a half pushes you over the top to make this is the, I don't think so completely personally. Is it going to be good commercial? I think so. It is a tough piece of property. You got houses out front. You have a house to the opposite side that has been in the old Turner family. You've got, I mean, so you go and drop commercial around all of that, and now it's you're stopping the commercial right to them borders. You see what I mean? Instead of being able to flow well around the grocery store, for example, down where they've purchased that house and back towards where we've developed back behind, it flows well and it goes out towards the Clark farm well. It's got a good wide road, industrial road going back there. It's easy access for the sewer and the power and everything that way. So, you know, I don't think it's the best commercial area. I think it's a good area. I think it's good. It's better up front than it is to the back. And that's why I've designed it that way. But again, that's a personal.
well, I just have a comment because it came up on how much space is going to be needed. I can't answer that question, but in just the RDA, we have 46 developed acres and 21 acres of undeveloped. So just inside the RDA, that's not the entire city, right? So we have all up at State Street, and we also have out past the industrial park, you know, whatever that future use gets zoned. And so going back to where do we, you know, where do we put the people, but where do we put the commercial? Nobody has that magic number. But the reason why on the RDA side, we're excited about incentivizing businesses is because we struggle like development and brand new build. There's potential there, right? But if you look at it that way, so I don't know, commercially, maybe that's a better question. If we double our population, does that same ratio work commercially, right? So is that enough space, or is it, you know, grow by whatever? So depends on how we grow, depends on the footprint. But I thought I'd just bring that up, that we do have just within the RDA 21 acres of available bare ground currently. A lot of that has build ready lots, you know, that we're still trying to.
I was going to say, this isn't in that RDA area. Is it considered RDA? Oh, RDA area. Okay.
That's all,
All right.
that's all part of it, but
Okay.
that's just how it ends up. So like that question of, does the 1.5 acres, is that a big tipping point? You know, and then then that other concern, if we are gonna grow, where do we put the people? And so these little pockets of density versus, expand our footprint. So we're gonna have it all. We're gonna have a little bit of all of it, I'm sure, but that's just something to consider.
So you got some more.
Well,
Jeffrey. Questions, thoughts?
I'll listen to others.
Again, this is the work session. and you have thoughts? Go ahead.
I understand what Ryan is, trying to do by getting the income to help fund the commercial side of it, so. I've always been in favor of somebody that buys a piece of property, he should be able to do what he wants to do with it. The best for himself and that, so. But I also know that what the planning has come back with, and seems like to me we override them quite often on some of our decisions. So, yeah, this is kind of a hard one, but I don't know. Yes, I understand what we're trying to get through here, but about all I got to say.
Jeffrey, anything else you got?
Still thinking.
Well, I've surprisingly, my neighborhood, I've talked to several neighbors and I kind of expected a little more pushback and they're content to have an apartment. They're content to have a store. It's not like they've been out and said, oh, we don't want any of this, which was encouraging. I didn't know what I would get from walking across the street and talking to a few of my neighbors. I don't know. I've ran this and I've walked over and walked through the field and up and down the ditch and looked around, and I guess for me, a big part of it is I'm really glad we have this option. Moving forward, somebody years back said, we want to designate this commercial, and we have an option to change that. And once we do, we're limiting the option for anybody else 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. I don't know what it's going to happen. I don't know what commercial might look like. I don't know. And I'm just glad we have an option to make a decision. And am I taking that away from somebody 20 years down the road when something else that may benefit the city more comes along? So that's kind of where I started on this. And I need a little from some of you that have been here longer. We had this discussion for this piece of ground a long time ago. And what that proposal at the time was this same thing, wasn't it? No, it was wanting to move it to when the Kimball kid put his house in, right?
Go ahead, T. Answer that.
Was this piece of property at one time zoned?
Must have been commercial.
It's always been commercial.
The-
Master plan.
The whole piece?
Master plan, right.
Did Kimball Home require a zone change?
No, but was it?
Because it was commercial.
Was it the Hopkins property also commercial at one time?
I don't remember for sure.
I was thinking it was.
We'll just turn that. We'll just get a discussion. Remember you asking Roger Carey?
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
This gives you more options. Roger is no leave it commercial.
Yeah, I do remember.
You're red. You got to be green. They
Oh my
can't hear you on
gosh,
TV.
you got to get me trained here. Where's the stupid? There you go. Mute, unmute. I asked Roger that, and as far as he could remember, it's always been commercial. So, one question I had, the comment about the sewer. There we go. Sewer, it all has to run west. And so if that's the case, if I can't do anything with this property for however long down the road, Destiny Homes can't do anything. It locks their property as well. Is that?
Yeah.
That's right. So,
Unless they want to put sewer through
and-
the property. They can do that if
right.
they want. But
Okay.
doesn't lock them off. Just makes them pay for the full sewer all the way through. If you were to give them permission to put sewer through, they still do it.
Ooh.
At their dime.
at their dime and the approval of the design of it, where it's gonna run.
Engineer would design that.
Right.
But you would.
The
you would have to have
placement
a
on
say
the
in it.
property that it would have to be, yeah, okay through me. So, 20 years down the road, and that's the crystal ball,
Sure.
right? That we don't know is it we always hold out and we wait for, well, there could be a better down here in another year, could be better in 20 years, it could be ready in 30 years. Well, is it not? There's something in front of you that you feel is good, but is it not good enough? What constitutes good enough? You see what I'm saying?
Well,
Right.
things change.
Yeah, and that's what
I'll
I-
go back to that piece of property that those apartments are built on across from Riverside. I mean, that was zoned commercial. Me, speaking for myself, I never saw that being anything but an eyesore as long as it was zoned commercial. 'cause
So do
I
you
could
think it's
never-
a bad thing now?
Oh, I think it's good. I like it better
Okay.
than the eyesore it was.
Absolutely. I would agree.
But I think it would have remained an eyesore forever if we had left it commercial, because I couldn't see anybody moving a commercial building or
Yeah.
doing a commercial building there. That part of town sort of changed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Commercial shifted. So things change.
So the
Definitely.
gain is just me thinking through it in the comments is if I can get this, it funds commercial for it. We basically, as a council or as a city, we're giving up one building possibly is about what we're giving up. Maybe two buildings I wouldn't even go that because the road's going through there. Maybe two small buildings, one the same size as what I would be doing out on the front, but opens up the next section of ground as well. That now we're not locked with two. Now that road can continue all the way through. Flow of traffic's better. I'm thinking out loud here from some of the comments that have been made. So
I like Jeffrey, talked to a few people. I said, what would you rather have? Commercial building back there or some condos? 2 or 3 of the comments were nothing. We like it the way it is. Which
Don't mess up the deer in the ditch along the fence back
Which I
there.
did.
That's what you do if you want to preserve. you
Which
buy
I
it.
understand, but it was interesting. The follow-up comment was, it would depend on what was built and who built it and how well it looked, is what I would be concerned about, what it looked like in my backyard. And I thought, yeah, that's a good point. You know, do I want, would I rather have nice looking townhomes or some sort of a junky commercial and vice versa? Would I rather have a nice looking piece of commercial property or some junky looking townhome? So, that was kind of the drift I got, was that whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever, it make it look good.
Make-
Yeah, I was
Make it look
was
nice.
more
Well,
surprised at the
absolutely, and
comments that
Yeah,
I didn't get, I guess.
yeah.
yeah, and I've had comments, where the old Kerrigan building is that I own, the houses across the street, people didn't purchase those houses right off the bat because they didn't want to be across the street from a commercial building, right? And I'd have to say it didn't look that well when I first got it, and it needed a facelift, and I think it's come
Yes.
a long ways since I've purchased it and done that, and it's been a really good ad over there. But I know that exactly what you're saying is, because those comments were made, is across the street. I don't want to be across the street from a garage. So I understand. Yeah.
Any other questions or thoughts from the council at this point? Kevin, we're gonna move on to the next item for the work session. Again, this will come up in the scheduled session for you to make a motion on to pass, not pass, table further, whatever your preference is. Okay, item number 2, discussion regarding amendment to Title 8, Chapter 8.02.100 of the Morgan City Code, water source outside the city limits. Quickly review that with you. What that is, if somebody requests water, culinary water, and they're not currently in the city, what do we want to do with that? We had a couple others come up. What this does, on page 1, if you look under B, it specifies some attributes of that. Number 1, basically, it's got to be an existing structure that for some reason have lost their ability to receive water from their previous source. Number 2 says, if it's new construction, this will be required to annex in rather than just receive water without annexation. Number 3 says, if it's in an annexation declaration policy, they first need to make application for annexation and then can proceed with the water. And number 4 just says city council's determination is either grant or denial of their application is final. Then it goes on to say if one of those 4 things are met, again, the grant, then they can proceed to get the engineering studies, proceed to get the payment, proceed with the process if one of those 4 are met. That's basically what this does is those as criteria for water, clean water outside the city limits. So with that much of an introduction, I'll entertain some questions or thoughts or input discussion on this.
I do have a question. This is just pertaining to the water service, or we just the water. My question is, what about the other utilities?
Far as electricity, there would have to be an agreement from Rocky Mountain Power. It's their territory. They would have to, it's the power state commission, city commission.
Rocky Mountain.
Rocky Mountain would have to sign off and say, no, we do not want to service that home, and then give the city option to service that home on the power piece.
So my question is, then if we're providing water, what about sewer?
Question on sewer would be whether it actually could be feasible or not. Some locations you're just flat,
So let's
not
say
even
down where I live,
possible.
because I had to extend it out, it could be feasible, very easy.
And there brings up a good question. Talk about, do we want to do the same thing for
That's why I'm bringing this
for
up,
sewer
because
and for electricity? Good question, Eric.
That's why I'm bringing it up,
Yeah.
because if you water in, you need water out. So that's why I'm bringing it up.
Well, from our recent discussion down on the highway there, once we provide the water in, there's an obligation of sorts. Gary, I'm pointing to you, and by the way, why aren't you in your pajamas?
He is, he just has
He
his
took his
tie.
suit coat off.
This is painted on.
You got a tie on your pajamas. I got it. There was some good discussion about sewers failing, and if they were to fail, is that an obligation that the city would also need to remedy? And we would have some exposure in that regard.
Yeah. Excellent question. So the question is, I guess maybe somebody weigh in on it. We wanted to have the same type of requirement, same type of documentation, same type of ordinance for other city utilities,
So I think
sewer,
Uh,
electricity, and so forth.
just from my perspective, if it's multiple services annexation, so this is intended to be very, very, very limited to an extreme case. We don't want to extend our services without annexation. That's why all new builds must annex. And the thought is it's in some areas where maybe the sewer line is a little easier to extend, but someone's has problems, well-wise, they don't necessarily need the sewer. But on the sewer, if it's within 300 feet, they're required to connect. So it kind of goes the opposite way. But if it's and we have total control, right? It's just saying that this is what we follow. So if someone comes in, I think if says, you need multiple services, then you're annexing, right? Because if you end up with water, sewer, power, and you're not in the city,
Why?
Yeah, you're really in the
So-
city. aren't you?
So that is a good point, Ty. I guess my next question to you is, would this, by this ordinance, I'm assuming that this would help get some clarification for you in some circumstances that's come up.
yeah, and this came up from the previous annexation
The
request.
previous
that-
one that,
that just said, okay, well, let's not annex, let's just go ahead and do the services. But at the time, we didn't consider
really-
new build, like, even though it goes, and the reason why this states this is because even if you have like, say we have a water line in the county that crosses a vacant parcel, if someone builds a new build, then they're not just automatically thinking, well, you already got the water line here, I'm
Well,
gonna
the
connect.
council had asked for a policy. This is
Yep.
in lieu of, or the policy then
Yeah.
at that point. So
This is the direction.
helping to address that. Had this been in place, we wouldn't have had the discussion.
yeah,
with
we
the-
wouldn't have.
with the
Right.
former-
It would have helped us on
And-
that situation. that we-
And so it is really intended to, like, hopefully we don't even use it, but if there's a situation out there that we haven't anticipated, then this would apply. But for all practical or all intents and purposes, if somebody wants services in the county, they just annex. That's our,
But Derek's point, do we need to have the same wording for power and sewer? Rather than just water, but
That's why I
rather
brought it up.
rather than water only?
and if it belongs here, or if it's on separate
same
agreements, yeah,
criteria.
yeah, separate.
So
That's a
question-
Gary-
Maybe
question-
Gary, any thoughts on
Gary,
that?
question for you. Would
Sure.
it make sense to you, from your experience, to add sewer and water to this one, or do a separate ordinance for sewer and water if we want the same criteria to apply for sewer and water extended outside the city limits?
I think we'd probably do a separate ordinance for that. My experience has been, most of the time, water controls where the sewer is going to be located anyway. Because if you decide you're not going to give somebody water, they haven't got any way of sewering out. And so, but there is the rare occasion where you may have, this is really applying to new construction and only leaves the possibility for existing construction that falls into hard times for some reason. And really, other than that, there is no exception for somebody wanting to construct something new. They really ought to come into the city. When you're constructing something new and wanting city facilities, you ought to pay the price, because the city cannot, it's really tough for the city to regulate the quality of what goes in once it's outside the city limits, because everything that I've seen, that has happened so far have been, oh yeah, we got a lateral, 150-foot lateral over here, and it's deteriorated over time, and we don't really know who's going to fix it, because the property in between the city and the property owner that's using it has changed hands now. And that's the type of thing that happens unless you have an organized system. But the answer to your question, the simple answer, Mayor, is I would do a separate ordinance for sewer if you're going to do that.
What if, Gary, what if in this one, we added a provision that said if on this water agreement, if they're asking for water, but they're asking for multiple utilities, so either power or sewer, then we wouldn't provide water without annexation. So add it to the water one that just says if you're requesting multiple utilities, you just got to annex,
That would be fine.
even if you're an existing home, right?
Yeah, that would work. Just a blanket
That makes sense.
addition to the ordinance that says,
So
you're
as
not
a condition of water service, if it's water and sewer, you're annexing. If it's, because this only addresses water, but we could reference it right in here.
So, council thoughts? Would you like the same criteria for sewer, electricity?
But Gary's saying we ought to have a separate resolution.
Right. Did you want the same criteria? Did you want the same criteria for the other utilities?
And I think what Ty is saying is if you want that many other utilities, you're not going to get water. We're not going to give you water, and the other utilities you're not going to get without annexation. So just a blanket statement is what you're thinking, just adding a blanket statement to this saying that if you need the other utilities for a new build, that you're not going to get water and you're not going to get these other utilities either.
Yeah, so it just all it does is make this really limited to just a water. So it doesn't, so it states it right in there. The other thing is water is more possible sometimes to serve than sewer. So depending on where that location is, the sewer is gonna daylight, it's not deep enough, you know what I'm, sewer is a little bit more of a limiting factor than water. So it just keeps it specific just to water. But if they're saying, I want water and sewer, now if it's feasible, then you're talking the whole thing, just annex and.
So to be clear, are you talking about just changing some wording on this ordinance?
Gary's talking about the whole new ordinance.
A whole new ordinance, right? For
I was just suggesting to add language to this one that references this, any other utility. And then, like Gary said, have a separate ordinance, just so they're cross. So if you don't read one independent of the other ones, right? So this one references, if you need another utility, then you got to annex.
so table this one.
That's what I'd recommend. We just table this,
Table this one and get the ordinance rewritten.
just add that verbiage and then bring it back. What if we did that, Ty?
Yeah.
We
Just
just
a
table this
provision. Yeah,
tonight?
we're not in a hurry. This
Yeah,
is
it's
just,
not a rush,
this is
yeah.
just.
I say, my
But-
opinion is I like this. I
Yeah.
just want to add power and sewer to it. So let's just table it tonight. Have them bring it back next meeting in January. And we'll just,
I guess my thought would be then let Ty and Gary dialogue whether we need
Yep.
more ordinances or add a statement of this
Yep.
or do both.
yep,
Mechanics.
I'd let Gary and Ty discuss that concept of the needing of two more ordinances and or cross-reference ordinances.
the reason I say that is I think, I mean, if we're doing this to help clarify, let's clarify it on everything. Let's make it so that it's crystal clear, period. Here's our stance.
Okay.
I think that would be great. We'll take that challenge. And Dave, it may be a single ordinance or an ordinance specific to those utilities, or we may be able to just do something simple at the end of this because it is pretty sweeping. You know, it sweeps everything in. So we'd be
Okay.
glad to do that.
Okay.
We'll bring it back to you.
Anything else on that item?
Just quick, and bring it up another time if we need to, but I think as we look at providing water outside of the city city limits, we picture an area or just right around those city limits that we would be doing that. So do we need any limitation on how far we're willing to go? I mean, what if somebody said, I'm a half a mile away, I'll pay for the cost if you'll provide the water? Do we need to limit things to a certain distance from the city limit?
And that brings up another point I was thinking of, right? Can I jump in here?
Okay.
Do we just want to annex property that the people that want Morgan City services? I mean, I was always told that you annex property, and quite frankly, I've been told the question the city needs to ask is what's in it for us if we annex this piece of property?
Doesn't it need to be part of the
The
annexation map?
declaration, but I'm just saying, to your point, I mean, do we just want to annex property just so we can provide a service to that property? I mean, should we be, we do, or should we be asking what's in it for us to annex that piece of property?
So that's why we exist as a city, is to provide services.
Mhm.
So if we can, and it's not a hardship, like, why would you not?
Well,
So,
Would we not?
Well, that we had an annexation proposal years ago that wanted to cross East Kagan Creek and annex over by Milton.
well, so if it leapfrogs, that's not,
Yep, that was a leapfrog.
well, yeah,
That
so,
was-
so when it makes sense, right? So, well, if it's, the annexation means you have land use, roads, you have purview over the whole thing to make it work to our standards.
What we refer back to the annexation policy. It wouldn't mean just give them automatically annexation. They would have to go through the annexation policy
We'd
and
want,
meet all the criteria on the annexation policy before they could come in. This just saying we won't extend services unless you do annex. But then they'd have to go through the annexation policy in order to be annexed, and they'd have to meet all the other criteria. So you could still either grant or deny annexation. And that in itself would say, if you deny annexation, then it says, no, we're not going to do services either.
So that policy would then, the annexation policy would eliminate, say, having to provide service to somebody in
All
enterprise.
this says you have to apply for annexation. And
Right.
You have to be in the annexation declaration area.
Yeah, if we've already identified that, then we're
Before
willing to
you can
consider
apply.
that. Sure. Okay.
Yeah,
Like,
you-
My point is you would rather annex and provide services than to provide services without it.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Gary?
Yeah, so we've recently had a request all the way out of Round Valley for services from Morgan, if you might remember. And that's what that annexation policy declaration is for. That's what you design. It's like your master plan for the expansion of the city. And you don't go out of that unless you go through the process, through the planning commission, then through the city council, to be able to add to that over time. And Tony's right. I always ask, what is in it for the city? But I also ask this: if a developer is willing to foot the bill for all of the improvements necessary to meet the city standards, that's a big deal. And they're within that policy declaration area. Those are two things that I, always look at. And I think this annexation's the area where you can ask for more than any other decision that you actually make. And so oftentimes the city does get something good out of it, Tony, to your point. They, might get a park or a bridge, or I think in that one, they were offering a bridge and some other things, as I recall. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. They would have given us the world, I think, to annex that area to the city, but they couldn't provide the adequate utilities. So.
Okay, good points. Appreciate the things that have been said. Good points. Anything else on this one? Okay, I'm gonna declare this work session adjourned. We'll go up to the council. We'll take care of item number 3, number 4 at the end of our regular session.
Another comment is if your rate structure is appropriate.
Yeah, well,
On your rate structure, then every single time you add,
well,
it just makes a bigger.
if it's going to cost you money, you know what I mean, Ty?
We're good. Okay.
All good points. We have a little break here.
If Tony's going to take a break, I'm going back to bed.
Now that you're retired.
Looks like Santa Claus. I brought mine. How are you doing, right? Good, you? Good. Windy day.
So you ready, Denise? We just keep on rolling, right?
You know what I mean? It's like some of those.
Okay, we're gonna call the general meeting to order for the session. And you two are still flying. We'll start this again. This is general meeting. Moore City Council is December 14th. And we'll continue with that meeting. Everybody welcome here. We're gonna have Tony's not with us right now. Ty, would you lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance? And I'll ask Jeff to give us an opening ceremony.
Stand and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Father in heaven, we're grateful, Father in heaven, for this evening and for this opportunity we have to meet as a city council here in this beautiful Morgan Valley. We're grateful, Father in heaven, that we've received the moisture we received, and we ask your continued blessing that we may continue to receive that moisture. And that we ask thy blessing on us as we discuss things that involves the city this evening, that we can make them decisions wisely. We ask thy blessing on those who are serving in the military. They may be blessed and watched over wherever they're being deployed in service. These things we ask for in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
I'd like to thank Ty and Jeff for getting us started. Denise, any public comments? Okay, we'll move down then to item number 7. It's the city minutes and warrants. Any question on the warrants? I don't know, I'll entertain a motion.
I've got a couple of questions, Mayor. Yeah, and Ty. Yeah. Let's see. We've on page, looks like page 3, we've got a JUB Engineers Legal and Planning for the wastewater treatment, just ongoing payments there.
Yeah, so working on that diffuser project. That's just about ready to go to bid. We have a pre-bid meeting on Thursday for the construction of that project. So that's just their ongoing bills for that.
Okay. It looks like we bought a truck from the Rush Truck Center, 2021 International. Talk about that.
Where's that one at?
Page 7.
I know what it is. I just want to see the
Yeah.
amount. So, yeah, that's a new plow truck. We just got it this week. It's not here yet, but that one. So I'll just maybe confess to the council while I'm at it, but we have other
Ask
trucks on.
forgiveness.
So we've kind of over ordered on trucks just because they've been
Hard to get.
hard to get. So we have a plow truck that was supposed to be here in the fall, the large one. And it's still not here. They're telling us maybe by May of next year. And so this one, we found one that was on the ground. It was ready to go. We just needed to add the plow that we wanted in a Salter. It's a little bit smaller. It was in the plans for next year. So we kind of made the switch. I'm not exactly sure if we're going to get the other one in the same budget year or not. But we also have a power truck that's been out for about 1.5 years that we're, so anyway, strategy kind of changed to, they're all on state bid, but we might be doing a budget amendment later if all the trucks that we have ordered actually come in. And if not, it'll just be this year for that year and it will not be an issue. So thanks for asking that.
Is that a full payment? Is that?
Yep, that's it.
That purchase?
That's the full truck. It's a 5,500.
Okay.
So it's similar to the one we just got with a dump bed. So
So the warrants represent 20 different days is all in the year, and yet there's over $500,000 in payments. Is that year-end stuff going on?
no, just a few expensive items. So it includes our UAMPS power bill, truck.
I noticed an annual water bill that we were
Annual,
basing.
yeah, but not
Not untypical then.
Yeah. It costs just timing of when they come in, not necessarily like an annual, a big influx at the end of the year.
Okay.
Well, really, our budgets.
From, I was just saying like from the end of the,
I got you.
yeah. But no, it's just,
Thank you. That's all I had.
yeah, you bet.
Tony?
Who was Stewart Irby Company? Is that just a supply? company
Yeah.
that runs all types of different things?
For power. Most of those are for power. Mhm. So a lot of those are this, that come in every month. A lot of those are the subdivision supplies for subdivision installs.
Other question? Or somebody ready for a motion?
Mayor, I'd move to approve the minutes of city council hybrid meeting, November 23rd, 2021. And the warrants from the period 11/19 to 12/10, 2021.
Motion by David, second by Tony, that we approve and pass the minutes of the Morgan City Council hybrid meeting November 23rd, 2021, and the one set of warrants as presented from date to November 19th to December 10th of 2021. Is there any discussion on that motion? See no to the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion passed then. The consent agenda is completed. We will accept it and approve the minutes and warrants. Okay, next item, number 8, is again the Morgan City Code regarding water service outside the city limits. We talked about this in the work session. So I need to entertain some more discussion on that or a motion. Somebody's ready for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we table the amendment to Title 8, Chapter 08, Section, all that regarding the water service outside the city limits, ordinance 21-14, until when's our next meeting? January 11th.
Second?
And the moving second, that we table the amendment to the Title 8, Chapter 8 regarding Morgan City Code regarding water service outside city limits, ordinance 2021. Motion to table that until the December 11th meeting. January 11th meeting. Thank you, Denise. January 11th meeting. Any discussion on that motion? See no, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? A motion passed. That'll be tabled for the next meeting on January 11th. Okay, we'll now move down to the next item, number 9. Public hearing. Gary, and Denise got the right verge on this. We moved this to date certain, table to date certain, so we didn't have to republicize public hearing. Do we need to open a public hearing for this?
Denise will have to let me know if this is correct, but I believe you left the public hearing open last time.
We closed public hearing.
Okay, then you would need to open the public hearing again. And
Okay, so I thought,
if you desire to take more comments, because quite frankly, you don't have to open the public hearing again. You only have to have one public hearing on both master plan changes and zone changes. According to state law, you provide for 2 in yours so that you hold it both at the planning commission level and city council level. But you've already gone through your public hearing on this, and it really comes down to just a discussion from the council members. If you feel that you've heard all the information from the public that you want to hear, and comes down to a decision essentially. So you don't need to open it up to public hearing again.
Gary, if it's on the agenda tonight, do we need to open it up for this meeting? It's on the agenda.
So if it's on the agenda as a public hearing, is that what you're asking, Tony? Do we need to open it up as a public hearing?
Could you?
That's entirely up to you as to whether or not you open it up to the public for input.
I was just curious if it was on the agenda, if it would be something we would need to do in this situation.
Do you have members of the public there? I can't see, to address the issue other than the applicant, because the applicant has had plenty of opportunity in your work meeting.
No one here, Gary, other than Ryan.
Okay.
Cody
So
did come in.
Oh. I didn't know your names.
So Ryan's had a really good run at talking to the council. So really, there's no need to open it up for public hearing at this point. Tony, thank you for that question.
Okay. With that said, we need to take a look at item A. It's open for floor for further discussion or a motion. You've had 2 or 3 weeks, 3 weeks to think about it more. Lots of folks we discussed in the work session. So item A happens to do with the general plan amendment to go from, the request is from central business district to medium density residential. A portion of that property, a portion that's listed. That's what the agenda item A is. So I'll entertain some more discussion on that item or a motion if you're ready for a motion.
The discussions would be similar though between the two, even though the events are separate.
Could be.
Okay.
You could grant change of the general plan and not do the rezone.
Mhm. It seems to me they're,
That would be a little,
yeah, they're close enough tied that we
close enough
could,
I
tied
don't think
together.
you'd
but-
do it, but you
yeah,
could.
we only need to talk about it one time and then handle each event separately.
Okay.
Make the motion that we pass ordinance 21-11, an ordinance amending the general plan for Morgan City by amending the land use element of the general plan for the area located at approximately 300 east, 400 north from central business district to medium density residential, providing for pillar, providing for severabilities, providing for an effective date.
Okay. A motion, wait a second.
Let me just clarify, that motion was to accept or adopt? Okay.
Adopt.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, David, okay. We have a motion by Jeff and a second by David to adopt, would be passed ordinance 21-11. What's in the ordinance is amending the general plan for Morgan City by amending the land use element of the general plan for the area located approximately 300 east, 400 north from central business district to medium density residential, providing for a repealer, providing for suitability, and providing for an effective date. I'll entertain some discussion on the motion. Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Since this is an ordinance, we'll go by roll call vote. Okay. Jeffrey,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Eric,
Nay.
and David.
Aye.
Motion passed with a vote of 4-1. Okay. So item number A is taken care of. Now we'll move to B. Under item 9B is the request for a rezone from the general commercial CG general commercial to multifamily residential RM15. Again, property located approximately 300 east, 100 north. It's the ordinance number 21-12. Floor is now for discussion on that item or a motion. If you're ready for a motion, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor,
Tony,
I will make a motion that we adopt ordinance 21-12. An ordinance amending the zoning designation of a portion of property located at approximately 300 east, 400 north by changing the zoning designation thereof from general commercial GC to multifamily residential RM15, providing for the amendment to the zoning map, providing for repealer, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
is there a second to that motion?
Second.
A motion by Tony, second by that Jeff.
Yes.
Do we pass ordinance 21-12? An ordinance amending the zoning designation for a portion of the property located at approximately community for north by changing the zoning designation thereof from general commercial or CG to multifamily residential RM15. Providing for the amendment to the zoning map, providing for repealer, providing for surveyability, and providing for an effective date. With that motion on the floor, is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Since it's an ordinance, we will vote by roll call. David?
Aye.
Eric?
Nay.
Tony?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And Jeffrey?
Aye.
Okay, motion, ordinance 2112 is passed. Again, passed the vote of 4-1. That will take care of item number 9 on your agenda. So now I moved to item number 10 on the agenda. Number 10 on the agenda is city reports. Ty, would you discuss the transfer station vouchers? As that was on the work session, we didn't quite get to that. Would you discuss that?
Yeah, so this is just renewing the one voucher per resident per year that we just did last time. So before we hand them out, just want to make sure council's okay with the same strategy we've been on. The sanitation budget is in check. I'd say it's, well, yeah, healthy if break even. It's I think what we've done in the past has been working. And the one voucher seems adequate, you know, for keeping properties clean and that sort of thing. So,
Those have to be requested.
So
It's a city office, right?
yeah, so what happens is when people come into the city office, even just to buy a voucher, and we say, have you received your free one for the year? And then we look them up by address and let them know. And so sometimes it's a pleasant surprise because they don't expect it, you know, or they just moved here or whatnot. So that's kind of how that works.
Yeah.
So we keep track of it and then we do it. And then the county also does the same one voucher per household per year.
I think it's a good thing. Certainly not going to break us, so I think it's a good service we provide to the community. So I would be willing to continue on with it.
I agree. I think it's a great service.
Keep going.
Keep going.
Denise, do we need an ordinance or a motion on that? Or is it just a discussion tonight? I'll let you and Ty decide that to see if we need to bring it back.
I
for
do have a
official-
question for the council, though.
Official vote or not?
No,
I think
It's
it's just me.
it's just what
Right,
Just
information.
you guys
and
give
nothing
your
else.
nod. My question, though, is going forward, do you want us to continue to track the number of free vouchers that we give out? Let me explain the process. When somebody comes in to get a free voucher, we write it down on a piece of paper. There's no way we can track it in Polaris. And then we put the note in Polaris that they picked it up so that, you know, we can look it up quickly that way. And then we just count it to get this number. Do you want us to continue to give you this number at the end of the year, how many free vouchers were picked up?
You know, that seems like a lot of work.
I agree.
It would seem to me that if
But
somebody,
it's just for your information, so
Yeah, that's-
whatever you guys
Well,
want.
it's
I defer to Ty maybe.
it's that, and then we have used it to compare notes with the county before. So,
Okay.
well, everything is good, it's okay, but if our costs or whatnot go up at the transfer station,
It's valuable information to have.
it does get used. So
So Denise, how do you check if I come in and tried to work the system and wanted a second one? I mean, how do you know that I've had?
We put the note in Polaris under their account.
To
So if
name
they
it.
come in to get another one, then we look in the notes
They put your
and
name.
it'll say that they'd already picked it up for that year.
In where?
Polaris, that's our accounting
That's
system.
okay.
Oh, I said, okay, but that's what threw me. So
Come in, we'll give you a trial run.
The times that would happen would probably cost you less than keeping track of them. So, you know, you're looking at that just from an efficiency standpoint, but we'll do it because Ty needs the numbers.
Okay. Ty, any other updates you have?
Yeah, so just to report back, the amendment to the RDA report. Those changes got made and then I got refiled with the state since it had already been filed. And thanks to Denise for following up with that. That was awesome. Then hometown Christmas went really well. Great weather, it was really well attended. I think the Santa Claus gave over like 540 candy canes and he sat there until about 5:30.
I'll report Tony was third in line. That's what you told me. He got there at 7 in the morning.
Save it for the grandkids.
Right, that's what they all say, Tony.
I knew I shouldn't have said it.
And our city Christmas parties this Friday, 1 to 4, just a reminder of that at the bowling alley. That should be fun. RSVP if you haven't, just to make sure we have enough pizza ordered. Then we got our rebate back from PHP. That was also in the that's not in the warrants because it's a revenue item, but it was 4,869. And then our local government's trust for our safety rebate was 1,769. So those both just came in.
That's representative of the work you're doing to be safe and healthy.
Well, and it's structured that way based on these. So we use the rebates as an incentive and it kind of goes round and round, right? Just gets better. So just an update on the bridge project. So that's still moving forward. I don't remember if I reported this to the council or not, but the estimate had gone way up. But what we're doing now is we've taken, so there's going to be some required improvements on Commercial Street. So we were taking that out of the project and we're starting a city project without the federal requirements. That was, so once the bridge came and connect to Commercial Street, they started doing all kinds of additions clear to the where it connected underneath the railroad tracks. And we're looking at slopes and curves and all, not that they're not important, it's just that we're just trying to connect to an existing road, but that road needs elevated in order to get the slope right on the bridge. And so we're just starting a separate project. We're going to do that ourselves. Just so you know, there's some road expenses coming. That one was not on our radar, but overall it'll reduce the overall cost of the project significantly just because we can do that project in-house.
Have the ability to pay for it then.
Yeah, and then well, we're paying for it one way or the other. So, but this will put it kind of in our control. The other thing it does is it moves us outside of the railroad's right of way, where Commercial Street is currently in the railroad right of way, which was also a complicating factor for the project because there's some formal things that have to happen. And anyway, it got pretty complicated and was going to be a time delay as well. The only change there is we're going to need additional property from the school district. So I'll be meeting with them on the property west of the bus garage because Commercial Street's going to get realigned closer to the river and elevated. And so I'll be talking to them about a lot line adjustment just to see what their flavor is for, they unofficially, I've already prepped them on it. They're more excited about having the bridge than any future plans for that property.
Have a vested interest.
Yeah,
Yeah, they've got a vested interest. I
Yeah.
can't imagine them saying
It's
no.
it's just a matter of how, right? So if we
Right.
record an easement, do a right of way, lot line adjustment, or maybe we just acquire the property, for future river uses or whatnot. So, but it's kind of up to them where it's their
Yeah.
property. So.
Agreed.
Maybe have a separate conversation, talk about the RDA at some other time and then.
Hey, Tony, how I work behind the scenes that's why you hired me, right? So,
Let him do his job.
so yeah, we're pulling levers on.
Don't throw too much at them at one time.
So anyway, just an update there, but overall the project still moving forward. We're still looking at 2023 for construction. So
Boy, that'd be.
It seems like we've been a year out for the last 4
It's-
years, but
It seems like it was 2022.
it was.
First of this year.
Maybe by then we can get some patrol cops down that way to patrol the kids.
But, and I don't know if I reported on the width, how the width was gonna work out
Side to
on that
side.
because of the number of girders needed, but it'll have 2 lanes and a 10-foot sidewalk on one side and a 6-foot sidewalk on the other side.
Oh, that'd be
So
beautiful.
the 10 foot's required for trail designation. So if we ever, if we extend the trail on that side, it wouldn't be a limiting factor in order to call that
That'd be
a
good.
trail project, so future grants. And
The bridge would include those same widths.
that's the bridge width, yeah. So we went back and forth, but we maximized, so we went down to I think it was 5 girders was needed minimally, and then we said, well, how much width can we get out of these 5 girders? So we expanded it to its capacity without adding another girder, because that was the biggest expense. And so we got a little bit more sidewalk width out of doing that approach. And so, so anyway, that's kind of the bridge update. If you're ever curious, just, reach out to me on how any of these projects are going. There's meetings weekly and that sort of thing. And just at our UAMPS meeting, I just thought I'd report that we just voted today for the first time, well, since I've been here, is to call back power from the IPP project. It's a kind of a unanimous decision with all of the participants. So things have been so difficult with the pricing in the summer. We've struggled so much that now in the summer months, the IPP pricing actually makes sense, where before it was more expensive than anything else we had. But California is in the same boat. So they elected today to shut down one of the units entirely, run minimally on one unit from January until the summer months in order to stockpile enough coal to run it at 80% capacity for the summer. And so that's a huge shift in operations, but because of doing that, it makes the power available in the summer months where everybody's struggling the most to plan power. So that's a 1-year kind of Band-Aid to what's going on in the power markets. But I just thought just kind of for your information. But after they showed us the numbers and our costs, because we have to pay the fixed costs every month, regardless. And then everybody decided to call back their entire entitlement for that project, because the rest of it's going to go into the pool project, which has been really subject to market pricing. And so we all agreed to call it back whether we use the power or not. So we'll use the power at that pricing first. If we have an overage, it'll go into the pool, and then the other members will get yep. And so we won't turn any of it back. We'll definitely use it. So just, it's crazy, but I looked at I've been looking at that, and just so you know, we're looking at doing a rate study, just because of our cost of power is significantly higher than it's been, even our levelized cost. So
Our base is in jeopardy too, isn't it?
yeah.
What about New Scale?
Yeah, so it's still moving forward. They're on schedule to, I think it's the end of 2022 for the COLA, the combined operating license thing. So they restructured it, went back down to 6. There's some the interested parties for subscription are all interested to the point they're all figuring out their transmission. So instead of doing exchange agreements, they're interested enough that they're trying to actually get lines to the Northwest for that project. And so that's a huge, to me, that signifies some serious interest, right?
A good move, yeah. Positive
It's
move.
not just, yeah, we'll buy into your project and we'll transfer. They're actually looking at getting the load that it produces to them. Right? So they're looking at options with Pacific Core and any other transmission lines that exist to see if they can deliver that and or build a new transmission. So there's a need, there's a lot of need out there. The power it's
Is it-
tough.
Is it still scheduled for late 2020 sometime,
Mhm.
28, 29?
Yeah, schedule's still, 2029, I think. They're still sticking to that, but I think with all of the new infrastructure, the federal government's really indicating, right? That now I think people are to the point where we're not just gonna try and figure out where this goes. It's a full, we're gonna need power and it's gotta be a carbon-free source. That message is getting,
Seems to be making more and more sense.
well, doesn't, our other projects, so like the Horse Butte Wind Project, they're adding units to that and it still does not make sense without the federal subsidies.
Yeah,
Like they added
I know.
a second project to existing infrastructure, and even with the existing infrastructure and all the tiebacks, just adding windmills and calling it a separate project still doesn't pencil out. On its own. Well, that was a new development today too, where they're adding the second unit. They're gonna overbuild the entire facility and then just limit it to whatever it's allowed to put on the system. Because it doesn't ever generate what it's supposed to, right? But anyway, they're looking at maximizing rebates, we'll call it that. So the strategy there is to maximize the rebates in order to make it make sense for the members. So.
Where is all that power? I was driving between Mesquite and Las Vegas the other day, like a lake out there. Have you seen that solar panel down there?
I haven't been down that way.
Oh, my goodness. You swear it's a lake. It looks like a lake, it's
Yeah.
an incredible solar, right?
Yeah, excited Vegas, it's the same way.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
incredible.
I was out down by,
You know what I'm talking about? That is huge. Yeah, that down between Mesquite and Vegas is
Well,
incredible.
that's actually a sun repowering project where they're returning the sun rays back to the
They
sun.
must be,
That's a different project.
they must be. It's,
I'm just.
parabolic reflectors.
I think that was everything I had. And so unless council has something, or Denise, if I'm forgetting something, I ran straight from the other meeting into this one, so I didn't.
Gary, do you have any training you want to give us tonight?
I was going to go over some of the new issues that are coming up, coming up this next legislative session. And one of them in particular, I think, is going to be of interest to you, and that, Ty, you may want to toss in with this. We sure appreciate Ty's being to the meetings, the LPC meetings, because last time it was extremely important. One of the items that is on the agenda is an item that essentially prohibits cities from spending money on incentivizing commercial projects. So, and it includes CSRs or the use of redevelopment funds for that purpose. So there's really, after the date that this thing is passed, anything which has not, and they're looking at a date of July, anything that has not been approved before July would not be entitled to receive any more tax dollars for commercial purposes. And so, I listened to your conversation tonight, and these things really do affect Morgan City in the way that we function. I think a lot of times, Ty and I were talking earlier this evening, a lot of times a one size fits all is imposed on all cities outside of the Wasatch Front. And it's usually something that came about as a result of what's happening in Salt Lake County, Utah County, or even Davis County for that purpose. But that's a big one that's coming up, and they have excluded all counties, I guess, you're a fourth class county, and you would still be included in that prohibition. And Ty spoke the other day to remove you from that prohibition. And so that's one of our jobs, or one of our efforts this coming legislative session, is to take Morgan out of that and to allow the counties with smaller populations and smaller towns were excluded, but they did not exclude, I think it was, what was it, fifth class?
Yeah, they
County
said fifth
below.
and sixth class are only listed right now in the proposal, so I added that we need to include the fourth class in the exemption.
And we appreciate that. So we've got our work cut out for us even now, this next legislative session. The legislators, I think sometimes they make their decisions with blindfolds on, but you know, you don't see them, but they're there. But anyway, so the training that I was going to maybe talk a little bit about, and I won't take a lot of time, but just the significance of the distinction between your legislative and administrative decisions. And tonight you made a legislative decision that was significant on changing the master plan and changing the zoning. And, you know, there's not a word that I could say about, you know, in criticism of the way you made that decision, because it was perfect. It was the way that you should make those decisions. They are very broad decisions, and you're entitled, even if there's a rational basis, to make a decision on a zone change or a master plan change. Now, if tonight you had been brought a subdivision approval or a contractor agreement, and we'll talk about that a little later because that law is changing as well, but any contractor agreement or subdivision law or ordinance, you're not making the law, but you're applying the law to a particular piece of property. All of a sudden, the standard increases considerably, and you have to strictly abide by the wording of your ordinances. And that's the reason your ordinances really, we need to go through and make sure that they're up to date and that we have ordinances that reflect the way you really feel about things. This ordinance that will reflect what we ought to do with additions to our water system, sewer system, and electrical is a good example of that. That will be an ordinance that you'll apply in the future to anybody that comes in, and you'll apply it uniformly, and you'll apply it according to the words that you put into place. So to Dave and everybody else who said, let's get this right the first time, let's put all the provisions in there. You're exactly right. That's exactly what needs to happen, because the standard is a little higher for when you apply an ordinance to a particular situation than it is when you're making an ordinance or passing a zone change or passing a legislative change. I think it might be useful for Denise and I to, on your city council agenda, maybe mark them legislative with an L or an A, legislative or administrative. So you become used to what is legislative and administrative. Would you like to have us do that so that you got an idea? Those of you that have been on the council for years, I know that you know it with your eyes closed probably. But
I was going to ask Gary if you give some examples of each.
sure. Any type of subdivision approval, applying the laws of subdivisions to a particular parcel of property. Any type of site plan approval. Any agreement that comes to the council that you're looking at and trying to make a determination of whether or not to adopt it or approve it, or not to adopt it or approve it. Those are the types of things. They're pretty much anywhere where you're applying a set of laws or a contractual obligation to the city. You're requiring that the city abide by a certain set of laws. Those laws, as you apply that to the law, you're going to be very strictly held to having to make your decisions according to those laws. Good example. The other day we had, I think I might have told you about this, I don't know, but the lady in one city that the subdivision came in for final approval. They determined they didn't have to put an extra street in. The member of the city council was just elected. And she said, you know what, since you don't have to put the other street in, why don't you just go ahead and put a park in right over here? Administrative or legislative determination? What do you think? Administrative, right?
Yeah.
because your law already says whether or not you can require a park to be in a subdivision, or 5 trees in a subdivision instead of 2 trees, or the width of a street in a subdivision, a certain width. Your law already reads that way. And so all she was supposed to do was apply the law to that particular set of facts. But she ended up in imposing that requirement. It was an invalid requirement that would have cost that developer hundreds of thousands of dollars to put that park in. And so the lawsuit would have essentially reflected a claim against the city for the cost of putting that park in, had she have made that a permanent part of their approval. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, and tonight you saw a perfect example of a legislative decision where really you just looked at it and you said, what's the surrounding area like? What are the utilities like? What is access like? Do we really need this type of use within the city? All of those things are considerable. And even Eric, to your point, I went and checked with my neighbors, even though you can't do zoning by vote. Okay, you just can't, but you can get a sense of what the neighbors feel that they need in a particular area. That can't be your only reason for rezoning an area, but it definitely can play into it because you're elected to listen to the folks out there. And so as long as you have a zoning reason or land use reason, along with what the folks may feel, because sometimes you may have to go against what the folks feel, then you're going to be safe in making those legislative decisions. And the Planning Commission, just as a last comment, the Planning Commission has a totally different task than you do. And their task is to comply very strictly with the ordinance. They don't have the flexibility that the city council has in creating ordinances and enforcing ordinances. The Planning Commission, their single job in the city is to enforce the zoning ordinances and to comply with the general plan. And so it's going to happen from time to time that you cross swords with the Planning Commission. And sometimes a joint meeting would be a good thing so that, if you find this happening on a regular basis, but that is their task, and your task is to ultimately make the decision on legislative matters. So anyway, that's it. Was that 5 minutes? 10 minutes?
Good.
It was 8. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate it very
Gary.
much, Gary. Thank you.
You got
Thank
2
you.
minutes to go, Gary.
Okay. Amen. I'll say a long amen.
Talk about Utah football.
There you go.
I would think
That's
we
a great-
want we want to continue to have that a part of the agenda in the future. We give some train each time. So thank you.
Glad to do that.
Okay, council. Oh,
Something at the end after council.
okay, council for anything else from the council?
Yeah. It's been a pleasure to serve with you, Ray. Been with you for a lot of years, and been a pleasure to have you as the mayor. And not only that, you've been a good friend and a mentor, and I really appreciate what you've done for the city over the years. A lot of hours, a lot of service that you've given to this community. It hasn't gone unnoticed, so I just wanted to personally thank you and tell you what a pleasure it's been to serve with you quite a few years. So it's been a pleasure. We're going to miss you.
Thank you, Tony.
Going to miss you.
Which street do you want named after you, Ray?
No,
Name a street.
He has a barn named after him. But that was my point too, Tony. That was my last item, Mayor, just so you know.
Jeff, anything else?
no, just
Okay.
thanks, Ray.
Eric?
Thank you for your leadership, for your mentorship. And because of you, I'm sitting here. Appreciate you getting me involved in this. And just thank you for all that you've done over the years. Appreciate your example. And wish you well in the future. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise, Ray, just the short time I've worked with you here on the council, I've come to respect your decisions, your integrity, your homework. It's been fun to watch. It's been a great ride, even though it's just been short. Wish you well and Godspeed.
Thank you. Thank you all.
One more thing. Thank you, Denise. That's very thoughtful of you to do that.
Every year, huh?
Wonderful.
Thanks, Denise.
Merry Christmas to Denise and in sunny weather.
Okay.
Eyes last.
I don't know if I can,
Yeah. I hear
but
you.
on behalf of the staff, I want to thank you. You said you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Ray. I wouldn't either. In fact, the city wouldn't have a manager at this point. Just appreciate it.
I appreciate the council's work. I appreciate all your thought processes. You do your work. I appreciate you can speak your own mind. I appreciate the fact that when somebody votes different than the rest of the group, that's okay. I'd like to continue. And the reason you're here is for your thought processes, your background, your knowledge, your ability to think clearly without some agenda per se. I appreciate full counsel from those aspects and the way you perform the duties of being here. Where you show up, you're here to council meeting, you're attentive, you give us your thoughts, you weigh them out and make some decisions and choices. And to me, I've always said that's what makes a good council. As I've watched other councils perform and have severe difficulties in the councils because they don't act that way. They try and run an own agenda. They try and burn themselves up. They try all kinds of personal feelings get involved in it. Where this council hasn't done that. This council has used their abilities to make some choices and decisions, business-like decisions, and left emotions out of it. And in time, we've had some folks who won't vote. It's been a 2 to 3 vote or a 4 to 1 vote and so forth, which is perfectly fine. I admire that from a council. And the next vote could be, just twisted different. You walk out of here as friends. That's what's cool about this council. That's what's made it cohesive, makes it you make good decisions. Those councils make decisions out of emotions. Don't make good decisions. Emotions don't give you the ability to think clearly. Your emotions override you. You don't think proper. You don't make proper decisions. So I appreciate this council. I do. Okay.
Can I add just one thing too? We have because of Ray, we also have a good new mayor coming in, and he would not have, Ray would have ran again had he felt like there wasn't somebody in line to take care of what's best for the city. And we had 2 good candidates. Tony, you need to know that as well. We had, it's one of those awesome things where it's like you can't lose.
Yeah, that's why it was close.
But we owe our future success because of your willingness to make sure that we were taken care of before you decided to bow out. And I respect that decision because most of the work that Ray does is behind the scenes.
Meeting adjourned.
Remember, there's a party on Friday.